I watched my wife dump my three 8-year-old daughters in wheelchairs on a cracked sidewalk in front of a boarded-up store and drive away without looking back, like she was tossing out old furniture. She had no idea there were cameras on her. No idea I was sitting half a block away in a rental car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. And I still ask myself this one question to this day. Did I save my girls that afternoon? Or did I help break them first? Before I tell you what kind of test I set up for my own wife, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is right now. I like knowing who's on the other side of this story. And if you're a parent especially, of a kid with special needs, listen close because you're going to have opinions about what I did, good or bad. My name is Robert Williams. I'm a tech billionaire by most people's definition, but to me that word means a lot less than dad. I live in Massachusetts in a big glass and stone mansion that looks like every rich guy house you've seen on TV, except mine has ramps. Instead of front steps, an elevator in the middle of the house widened, doors, lowered sinks, custom tables, and not a single rug that can catch a wheel because my daughters roll, they don't walk. Their names are Emma Lily and Sophie Triplets, 8 years old, paraplegic, after a car accident that took their biological parents when they were few. I met them when they were these tiny girls sitting in hospital beds, legs in braces, eyes too old for their faces. I built my whole company around accessibility software, but those three turned accessibility from a line item on a slide into my entire reason for waking up. I adopted them, brought them home, and I promised them one thing every night before bed, forever and always. That was our little ritual. I'd say forever and always, and three sleepy voices would answer back, forever and always. For 3 years, it was just us and our little chosen family. Me, the girls, Mrs. Martinez, the cook, Mrs. Winters, their tutor, a couple of staff, and my best friend and business partner, Marcus, who basically became Uncle Marcus II. Sophie realized he always brought gifts. My days were a mix of board meetings and science projects, of signing deals and helping Emma transfer from bed to chair, of investor calls, and Lily's quiet drawings of traveling to conferences, and racing Sophie down the hallway in wheelchairs until Mrs. Winters scolded us. You know that feeling when life is hard, but it's yours, and you've made peace with it, and in a strange way, you're even grateful. That was us. Then came my mistake, wrapped in a designer dress and a charity smile. Her name was Vanessa Carter when I met her later. Vanessa Carter Williams. Former model, 32, tall, blonde. The type of woman magazines call effortlessly elegant. We met at a charity event for children with disabilities. Yeah, the irony hits a lot harder now. She was all warmth and big eyes, and I just love what you do for those kids, Robert. It's so inspiring. She asked intelligent questions about the software I built, laughed at my awkward jokes, listened when I talked about the girls. She told me her dream was to be a mom one day, especially to kids who need extra love. You can see where this is going, right? For months, she showed up at events at my office, then at the house. She brought the girls art kits, cute sweaters, little hair bows. She posted pictures online with captions like, "Blessed to spend time with these angels," and the comments were all, "You two are the couple goals and she's going to be the best stepmom." The girls were polite, a little stiff, but I told myself it was just shyness, trauma, all of that. The camera loved her, donors loved her, my board loved her, and I wanted to. After years of being the dedicated single dad and the work-obsessed CEO, I let myself believe I could have something like a normal love life again. We dated, we traveled, she moved in, and 6 months before everything blew up, we got married in a tasteful, perfectly curated ceremony that the magazines ate up. Looking back, the red flags weren't even subtle. I just didn't want to see them. The girls always tensed when they heard her heels on the marble. Their good morning Vanessa never had the spark their good morning dad did. She rarely, if ever, joined their physical therapy sessions. There was always a spa thing, a lunch, a shoot. When we had dinner parties, she would brag about our girls, but when she thought no one was looking, she barely looked at them at all. The first real crack came one afternoon in the kitchen. Sophie, my bold one, asked Vanessa, "Can you come to therapy with us next time?" And Vanessa laughed this tight little laugh and said, "Therapy isn't really my thing, sweetheart. That's more of a daddy job." She said it in that sweet tone that sounds harmless, but you know when something just sits wrong in your chest? Yeah, I kept brushing it off, telling myself she was still adjusting, telling myself love would grow, that she was trying her best. You ever lie to yourself so hard, you almost forget you're doing it? Then came the phone call. That night changed everything. I came home early from a meeting, walking down the upstairs hallway toward my office when I heard her voice. Not the soft charity voice, the real one. Sharp, cold, dripping with annoyance. "Those broken kids are not my problem," she snapped, her voice echoing from our bedroom. "I didn't sign up to be a nurse to 3 wheelchair-bound brats. Once we've been married a year, I'll convince him to send them to some special boarding school." Being married to a billionaire sounds perfect until you realize the package includes 3 disabled children. I just need to stick it out a bit longer. I stopped dead in the hallway. It felt like someone had knocked the air out of my chest. For a second, I actually thought maybe that's not her, maybe I misheard. But it was her laugh, her rhythm, and then I heard, "I know, Sarah, you think I'm heartless, but come on, you've seen them, they're a lot." My hands were shaking. This woman had been smiling for cameras with my daughters for 6 months, calling herself blessed and honored to be their stepmom. And now I'm hearing her call them brats and broken like they're some defective accessory. I backed away from the door like it was on fire. I didn't confront her, not that night. I went down the hall into my office, closed the door, and just sat there in the dark, listening to my own heartbeat pound in my ears. All the little moments I'd brushed off as stress or adjustment, or my imagination suddenly snapped into place like puzzle pieces. The way she never learned where their medications were kept. The way she always had something important when they had doctor's appointments. The way Lily had quietly stopped putting her in any of her family drawings. That night, I barely slept. I'd go check on the girls, watch them breathe, tuck blankets a little tighter around them, then stare at the ceiling of my bedroom, while Vanessa slept peacefully on the other side. She had no idea I'd heard her. I had no idea what I was going to do. If it were you, what would you have done right there that night? Confront her, kick her out, pretend you hadn't heard it, and hope you were wrong. The next evening, my best friend Marcus came over for dinner. He's been with me since before there was a company, before there was money. He's the one person who will look me in the eye and tell me when I'm being an idiot. We had dinner with the girls, did the whole Uncle Marcus, "Did you bring us anything?" bit. Then, when they went off with Mrs. Winters to watch a movie, I took Marcus into my office and shut the door. "What's going on?" he asked. "You've been off all evening." "I heard Vanessa," I said. And then I told him everything, word for word, every brat, every broken, I just have to stick it out. Marcus listened, sighed, and said a sentence that hurt worse than the phone call. I hate to say this, but I'm not surprised. Turns out, he'd seen the looks she gave the girls when she thought no one was watching. The way she'd go stiff when one of them needed help transferring to a chair. The way her smile dropped the second the camera clicked off. He'd tried to hint at it, he said, but I'd been so happy, so relieved to not be alone anymore, he didn't push it. I felt like the world's biggest fool. So now I'm sitting there in my office with my best friend, and the weight of 3 little lives on my shoulders, and I'm saying things I never thought I'd say. I need to know how far she'd go. I need to know if she's just saying ugly things, or if she actually sees them as disposable. Marcus looked at me, really looked, and said, "What are you thinking?" And here's where I stepped onto a path I can't ever fully justify, even if the outcome saved my kids. I'm going to tell her we lost everything I said, that the company's collapsing, the money's gone, the house is gone. I need to see if she sticks around for us or for the lifestyle. Robert. That's insane, Marcus said. But he didn't walk out. He didn't say no. He just rubbed his face and said, "If you're going to do this, we have to do it right, and we have to protect the girls." So I called another person that night, someone on the opposite end of the emotional spectrum. Diana Washington, my head of security, former cop. The kind of woman who walks into a room and you know nothing gets past her. She showed up at my house at 11:30 at night, hair still damp from the shower, jeans, sweatshirt, eyes fully alert. "What's the emergency?" she asked. I told her everything. The phone call, the words, my plan. "I want to tell Vanessa we're bankrupt, that our assets are frozen after a cyber attack, that the bank is going to seize the house. I want to tell her we need to move to my small city apartment and that we have to temporarily place the girls in a state facility while I deal with lawyers and banks. And I want to see what she does." Diana stared at me for a long moment. "You want to see if she abandons them," she said, not as a question. "Yes," I said. Saying it out loud made me feel sick. "That's risky, Robert. She might actually leave them somewhere," Marcus cut in. "That's where you come in." I told Diana I want a full surveillance team. Cars, cameras, everything. The girls will have GPS in their bags and their stuffed animals. You shadow her the entire time. The moment I say go, you pull them out. I will not let them be in actual danger. Diana nodded slowly. "We can do that. But I want it on record that I told you this is going to hurt them even if we're watching." "I know," I whispered. I need to know who I married before she convinces a judge that these kids would be better off somewhere else." We spent 2 hours planning. What story would be plausible? What address I'd give her Pine Grove State Facility, which in reality would be a community center on Oak Ridge Drive where Diana's team would be set up. What time we'd talk to her. How we'd hide trackers in favorite stuffed animals and backpacks. By the time they left, the sun was starting to color the sky. That night, I went into each of my daughter's rooms and tucked a small tracking device into something they loved. A tag on Emma's favorite hoodie. The ear of Lily's stuffed rabbit. The lining of Sophie's backpack. I stood there in the dark, listening to them breathe and whispering, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry," over and over in my head. Morning came too fast. At breakfast, I played my part, distracted, spilling coffee, checking my phone too often. Emma, my little analyst, noticed immediately. "Dad, you spilled," she said, watching me with those sharp eyes. "You look tired. Did you sleep?" "Just work stuff on my mind," I lied, wiping up the mess. Vanessa came down like she was walking onto a runway, hair perfect, dress perfect. "Good morning, family," she said, kissed my cheek, barely acknowledged. The girls rattled off her day. Charity luncheon, spa appointments. I won't be home until dinner. I looked at her and felt like I was seeing a stranger. "Actually," I said calmly, "I need to talk to you in my office after breakfast. Something's come up." An hour later, with the girls settled in their sunroom classroom with Mrs. Winters, I led Vanessa into my office. Diana had texted. Her team was in position, listening devices, live, cars ready. "What's going on?" Vanessa asked, sitting gracefully, but her eyes were already scanning my face like a radar sensing a shift. I took a breath and started the performance that would change all of our lives. "There's been a catastrophic security breach at the company," I said. "Our systems were compromised last night. The attacker got into everything. Accounts are frozen. It looks like we're facing bankruptcy." Vanessa blinked. For a second, the mask slipped and I saw real panic. That's impossible," she stammered. "You're worth billions." "Not anymore," I said. "We have to let the staff go today. The bank will probably move on the house in a matter of days. We'll need to move to a small apartment I own in the city until this gets sorted out." Her mind was clearly racing. No staff, no mansion, no galas, and the girls. I added, watching her carefully, with everything being frozen with the legal fees. "I can't. We can't give them what they need right now. So I've made arrangements to temporarily place them at Pine Grove State Facility. It's just until I can stabilize things. Weeks, maybe months. That was the moment. That was the choice point. A state facility, she repeated like the words tasted bad. You want to put them in some state home? It's the only option, I said quietly, handing her a paper with the fake address. I need you to take them there today while I meet with the lawyers. We'll tell them together that it's temporary, that I'll come for them as soon as I can. You know that movie moment where you hope someone will surprise you, where you're begging them silently to choose the right thing. This was that moment. She looked at the paper, looked at me, and something in her eyes hardened. I'll pack their things, she said flatly. No hesitation, no protest, no, we'll figure out another way. And that's when I knew. I followed her upstairs, watched her yank small suitcases out of closets and throw in basic clothes, ignoring the special blankets they loved, the favorite pajamas. I reminded her about their medication, just to see if she'd even know where it was. Right. Where is that again? She asked. In the kitchen cabinet, labeled. Like it's been for 6 months, I said. I felt sick. Then came the worst part, telling the girls. Sophie cried immediately. Why can't we stay together? Why can't we just all go to the apartment? It's just temporary, I said, kneeling next to her chair, fighting every instinct in my body that screamed to end this stupid plan right there. I promise I'll come get you as soon as I can. This is just while I fix things. Emma asked practical questions about how long, about calls, about schoolwork, trying to wrestle the chaos into something logical. Lily went quiet, her eyes big, her hands clutching her stuffed rabbit. When we got to the driveway, Vanessa was the one loading their wheelchairs into her SUV, half-heartedly, almost carelessly, almost pinching Lily's fingers at one point. The girls were crying, confused, scared. I hugged each of them, kissed their heads, whispered, I love you, remember that forever and always. And they whispered it back, voices trembling. As the SUV pulled away, I stood there in the driveway feeling like the worst father alive. Then I turned, walked down the street to a rental car we'd parked out of sight, got in, put in my earpiece, and heard Diana's voice. We have eyes on her boss. We're right behind her. I started the engine and followed. At first, I told myself maybe she was taking a different route to the address. Maybe she got turned around. Maybe she was going to call me and say, this doesn't feel right, we have to find another way. But Diana's voice cut through that denial fast. She's heading west, not north like she should be. That's nowhere near the community center. Stay with her, I said, gripping the wheel. 15 minutes later, we were in a struggling part of town. Closed shops, broken streetlights, a shuttered convenience store with boards over the windows. Vanessa pulled over. I parked half a block behind heart-pounding hands, shaking, watching through binoculars, as the woman I'd married walked around to the back of the SUV. And then I saw the scene I'll never get out of my head. She hauled out Emma's wheelchair, snapped it open, lifted my daughter under the arms, and dropped her into it like a bag of groceries. Emma winced. You're hurting me, but Vanessa ignored her. She did the same with Lily and Sophie, barely speaking, eyes hard. Sophie looked around. Where are we? This isn't a facility. There's been a change of plans, Vanessa said, her voice cold. She tossed their backpacks on the concrete next to them. Your father is broke, she said. He can't take care of you anymore, and neither can I. That's not true, Emma protested. Dad said he's coming to get us at the facility. There is no facility, Vanessa snapped. That was a lie. Someone will find you eventually. You're not my problem anymore. Then she got back in the SUV, shut the door, and drove away. Did I mention they were 8 in wheelchairs on a mostly empty street next to boarded-up stores and flickering streetlights? From my car, I heard Diana's voice in my ear, tight with controlled rage. We've got everything on video, sir. Every word. Do you want us to intercept? I stared at my daughters. Emma trying to think of a plan, Sophie waving desperately at the one woman who hurried past them without stopping, Lily curling in on herself, eyes vacant. The original plan had been to let it go 30 minutes to fully document the abandonment, but 15 minutes in, I couldn't breathe. I'm going in, I said. Stay on Vanessa. Get every move she makes. I pulled the car up to the curb. Sophie saw me first. "Daddy," she screamed, and I swear I died and came back to life in that one word. I ran to them, pulled all three into me as much as their chairs allowed, saying, I'm here, you're safe, I'm so sorry. I'm so, so sorry." "She left us," Sophie sobbed. "Vanessa just left us here. I know I said I saw everything." Emma pulled back, tears and anger mixing. "You were watching. You let her do this." "I had to know," I said, my voice breaking. "I had to see who she really was before I could protect you from her. There were security teams all around. You were never in real danger. But I am so, so sorry I let you feel that way." Lily said nothing. Didn't even look at me. She was somewhere far away inside herself, the way she had been when she first came home from the hospital years earlier. Here's where I want you to really ask yourself something. If it were you, would you ever forgive me? I got them in my car, strapped in their chairs, drove them home while they cried or stared out the window silently. I called Marcus and Mrs. Winters on the way. "We're coming back," I said. The test worked. Too well. By the time we reached the house, Mrs. Winters had set up their favorite blankets, hot chocolate snacks, familiar toys. Marcus was there, jaw clenched so hard I thought he'd break his teeth. We wheeled them in. Mrs. Winters knelt in front of them, tears in her eyes, calling them her brave girls. They wouldn't let go of each other. That night they refused to sleep in separate rooms, so we pushed all their beds together, and they fell asleep, clinging to each other's hands. I stood in the doorway, feeling like both a rescuer and a criminal. Dr. Rachel Morgan arrived that same night, calm voice, warm eyes, a stack of materials in her arms. She sat with me in my office while the girls slept upstairs and explained in that clinical, gentle tone only good therapists have how abandonment on top of parental loss and physical trauma burrows deep into a child's brain. "You did what you thought you had to do to protect them," she said. "But you also hurt them, Robert. We'll need to work through both of those truths." And then just when I thought it couldn't get messier, the story flipped. Here's the twist you've been waiting for. Stick around because what happened next will blow your mind. While we were focused on comforting the girls, Vanessa was moving fast. Faster than any of us anticipated. By midnight, my phone started buzzing with notifications. Marcus texted me a link to a tabloid article with a headline like "Tech Billionaire Stages Cruel Test to Trap Wife." There was a picture of Vanessa looking tearful, plus a photo of me and the girls at a charity event, me smiling, the girls in their wheelchairs. The article quoted sources close to Vanessa, claiming I had emotionally abused her, manipulated her with a fake bankruptcy, used the children in an elaborate psychological game to create grounds for a prenup-friendly divorce. In her version of the story, she had only driven the girls as instructed, and I had cut the footage to make her look like a monster. I wish I could say I didn't see it coming. I didn't expect it that fast. The next morning, it wasn't just a tabloid site. It was morning shows, online news, social media. A TV host on some national breakfast show said in her serious voice, "Is this controlling behavior disguised as concern for children? Did Robert Williams take things too far?" Across from her sat a spokesperson for Vanessa Carter. Williams spinning lines about my cruel test and the danger I had put my children in. That's not all. An email from my lawyer popped up. There'd been an anonymous call to Child Protective Services. An investigation was being opened into whether I had endangered my children. So now, in addition to being the father who watched his girls get abandoned, I was suddenly the one being investigated for harming them. You think that's fair? 2 days later, a woman named Karen Daniels from CPS came to my home clipboard, in hand-neutral expression, the kind of professional distance that says, "I've seen everything, don't try to charm me." She interviewed me, then the girls, then Dr. Morgan, then wanted to see the video. She watched Vanessa abandon the girls without flinching. When it ended, she said, "The mother's behavior is clearly troubling. But you made a choice to involve your children in a test. I need to understand your reasoning for that." I told her about the phone call, the comments, the plan. She took more notes. Then she interviewed the girls. Sophie did her best to defend me, but she also told the truth. She had been terrified. Emma started hyperventilating when she tried to describe being left on the street. Dr. Morgan had to intervene. Lily barely whispered a word, clutching her rabbit eyes down. Karen left saying, "We'll be in touch," which is one of the worst sentences a parent can hear. At the same time, paparazzi started camping near our gated entrance. Some climbed walls, snapped photos through trees. One afternoon, while Mrs. Winters had Emma and Sophie outside getting some sunshine, a photographer shouted a question about losing custody, spooking Lily, who was already emotionally fragile. She tried to wheel away quickly, caught her wheel on a stone, tipped over, and fell. The photographer kept shooting pictures as I ran across the grass to pick her up, yelling for security. The next morning, one outlet ran the photo with a compassionate headline about protective father shielding hurt daughter. Another ran the same photo with the caption, "Unstable billionaire loses control as disabled child falls during paparazzi fight." Same image, two opposite stories. That's how this world works now. So what do you do when the truth is on your side but the public narrative is slipping away? You fight back. I called a meeting in my office. Marcus, my lawyer, James, Diana, and a PR specialist named Olivia Martinez, who handles crisis management for people whose names you definitely recognize. We sat around my big glass table while my daughters did art therapy upstairs. And I said, no more hiding. No more waiting for whatever story she tells next. We tell ours. We show everything. Diana had been digging, and what she'd found made my stomach turn, but also gave us leverage. 6 weeks before my bankruptcy stunt, Vanessa had been Googling fastest way to divorce a wealthy spouse and how long until prenup is safe and child abandonment laws, Massachusetts. She'd had 3 separate phone consultations with a high-profile divorce attorney, Blake Thompson, before I ever confronted her. She'd also changed her name at 18 from Veronica Cartwright, after a juvenile case involving trying to get an elderly neighbor to sign over his will to her. On top of that, one of her old modeling roommates told Marcus that Vanessa used to brag about targeting rich men at charity events, that when she found out I had 3 disabled daughters, she literally said, his billions make the wheelchair brats worth tolerating. Another piece of gold came from a driver who'd taken Vanessa away from my house the night Diana escorted her off the property. He'd had a dash cam running with audio. On the tape, Vanessa is ranting into her phone about how she never wanted those crippled brats, how she was just waiting out the prenup clock, how she was going to make him pay. You ever have that moment in a movie where the hero suddenly has the evidence that flips everything? This was that moment. Except life's messier than movies, and even bombshell evidence doesn't magically fix your kid's trauma. Olivia's strategy was simple and brutal. One big, honest sit-down interview with a respected journalist, someone not known for fluff. She picked Patricia Reynolds, who hosts a national morning segment and has a reputation for being tough but fair. We invited Patricia to the house. The girls stayed upstairs with Mrs. Winters and Dr. Morgan. I sat in the living room under lights and cameras and told the story in a way I never thought I'd have to, from meeting Vanessa, to overhearing the call, to the test, to the abandonment, to the aftermath. I didn't sugarcoat the part where I'd involved the girls. I told her straight up, that's my biggest regret. I underestimated how cruel she would be. Then we gave Patricia the unedited footage, full abandonment video, no cuts. We gave her the search history, the phone records, the roommate statement, the dash cam audio. She watched Vanessa's face on that video, heard the words, "You're not my problem," then listened to the audio of crippled brats and prenup clock. And I watched Patricia's face go from skeptical to disturbed. When the interview aired, it changed everything. She didn't go easy on me. She asked if I'd manipulated my wife, if using my children in a test was ethical, if my wealth made me feel above consequences. I answered as honestly as I could. But then she said something that mattered. "I've seen the unedited footage," she told her viewers. Whatever led to that moment, the choice to leave 3 disabled children alone on a deserted street shows clear premeditation and callous disregard for their safety. Within hours, the online conversation started to shift. New hashtags appeared. "I stand with the Williams girls believe." The kids. Even some calling Vanessa the abandoner. People who had been calling me a monster 2 days before were now saying, "Okay, hold on, this is different." Child Protective Services called again. Karen's tone had softened slightly. "We still have concerns about your judgment in testing her that way," she said. "But we're now more focused on her actions toward the children." It wasn't over, not by a long shot, but for the first time I felt like we weren't drowning. Vanessa, of course, did not back down. She fired her first lawyer and her PR spokesperson and hired a new attorney, a guy named Elliot Graves, famous in legal circles for being a scorched earth divorce lawyer. His specialty wasn't just winning, it was destroying the other side. He filed for an emergency custody hearing, arguing that my tests showed reckless disregard for my daughter's safety, and that Vanessa, despite her moment of error, was the more stable parent. He subpoenaed Dr. Morgan's therapy notes, hoping to find something that could be twisted into the girls were already afraid of him. While adults fought over strategy and statements, my daughters were trying to sleep through nightmares. We built new routines around therapy and safety. Dr. Morgan created trust charts for Emma, where she could categorize people into always safe, usually safe needs, more information. Lily's art shifted slowly from dark scribbles with tiny figures in wheelchairs, surrounded by chaos, to drawings where a large figure, me, stood between the girls and the darkness. Sophie, my outspoken one, started asking questions about why people stared at them in public, and why some grown-ups were mean about wheelchairs. Dr. Morgan suggested channeling that into something constructive, so we started a private video diary just for them, where they could talk into a camera about their day, their fears, their wins. Meanwhile, I was preparing for the most important court day of my life. The morning of the hearing, I put on a simple dark blue suit. Nothing flashy, nothing that screamed billionaire. Emma rolled into my room and looked me up and down. "You look nervous," she said. "I am nervous," I admitted. "But whatever happens today, I'm coming home to you. That's not negotiable." "Are you going to see Vanessa?" Sophie asked at breakfast, pushing her cereal around. "In court, yes," I said. She squinted at me. "Tell her we're not broken. We're just different." I laughed, but there were tears in my eyes. "I will." We used a side entrance at the courthouse to avoid the crowd of reporters at the front. Judge Sandra Martinez presided. A woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and eyes that made you sit up a little straighter. Vanessa sat at the other table, in a navy dress, minimal makeup, hair pulled back. She'd dressed herself down, looking softer, smaller, fragile. If you didn't know anything else, you might feel sorry for her. Elliot Graves stood up and painted me as a controlling, manipulative billionaire who orchestrated an elaborate psychological trap using his adopted children as pawns. He said the video was obtained under coercive circumstances, that Vanessa had been under extreme duress and not in her right mind. He said I had created this entire thing to get out of paying my young, vulnerable wife what she was owed. My lawyer, James, got up and said, "This case is not about a marriage. It's about 3 disabled children and whether they were treated as human beings or as obstacles." He laid out the phone call, the searches, the consultations, the abandonment. The judge watched the video in chambers alone while we waited. I sat there in the courtroom remembering every second of that day, the way Lily's face had gone blank, the way Sophie's voice had cracked when she called my name. When Judge Martinez came back, she looked tired and very, very serious. "I have reviewed the footage," she said. "I have concerns about the way this situation was created. However, the defendant had agency in her actions. The motion to exclude the video is denied." That was the first domino. I took the stand first. Graves tried to provoke me, asking if I was used to getting my way, if I thought my money put me above consequences, if I routinely manipulated people for sport. I stayed as calm as I could, answered directly, admitted what I'd done wrong, without letting him twist it into something it wasn't. I said I didn't create this to destroy my wife. I did it because I overheard her call my daughters brats and broken and talk about sending them away. I needed to know if they were safe with her. Then Vanessa took the stand. She played the part she'd built, voice trembling, eyes filling at the right moments. She said she'd been shocked by the bankruptcy news, terrified of losing her home, overwhelmed. She claimed she thought the location I'd given her was unsafe, that she'd only left the girls temporarily to clear her head and intended to come back. She said my lie about the money was emotional abuse, that she'd been psychologically trapped. James got up with a calmness I envied and started to ask his questions. 6 weeks before this test, "Did you search for fastest way to divorce a wealthy spouse on your laptop?" he asked. "I don't remember," she said. He showed her printouts of her search history. "Did you consult with attorney Blake Thompson on 3 separate occasions prior to this incident about divorce strategy and prenups?" "I talked to many lawyers," she said. "I was scared of Robert's temper. I don't have a temper, for the record. My girls will tell you I'm a giant marshmallow." "Is it true," James continued, "that your birth name is Veronica Cartwright, and that you changed your name at 18 after a juvenile case involving an elderly neighbor's will?" "Objection," Graves snapped. "Juvenile records are sealed." "Overruled," Judge Martinez said. "I'll allow it for pattern of behavior. The witness will answer." Vanessa said it was a misunderstanding, that she changed her name for her modeling career, that she'd made mistakes as a child. Finally, James pulled out one last piece. "Your Honor," he said, "we have new evidence. A dash cam audio recording from the driver who transported Mrs. Carter Williams away from the Williams home the day she was removed from the property." Graves tried to object again, but the judge allowed it. They played the recording over the courtroom speakers. Hearing her voice like that, in that raw, angry tone in front of a judge, was surreal. "Of course I never wanted those crippled brats," she said on the audio. "I just needed to stick it out long enough to clear the prenup time frame. 3 wheelchair kids, please. I married Robert, not a children's hospital ward." You could feel the air change in that room. "Is that your voice?" James asked her when the audio stopped. Vanessa's composure cracked. "Everyone says ugly things when they're upset," she snapped. "You pushed me into a corner." "He pushed me into a corner. I was stressed, I didn't mean." Judge Martinez held up a hand. "I've heard enough." After a short recess, we came back for her decision. "In 26 years on this bench," she said, looking straight at Vanessa, "I have rarely seen such calculated indifference toward vulnerable children. Whatever marital issues existed between you and Mr. Williams, your actions toward those girls speak louder than any statement in this courtroom." She granted the divorce in my favor on grounds of abandonment and cruelty, upheld the prenup in full, awarded Vanessa nothing, and most importantly, solidified full custody of the girls with me, with notes about ensuring their continued therapy and protection from media exposure. We walked out of that courtroom without fireworks, without cheering, just this deep, quiet relief. Marcus clapped my shoulder. Diana nodded once. James let out a breath he'd probably been holding all week. A reporter called out, as we were heading to the cars, "Mr. Williams, how will you help your daughters trust again, after everything they've been through?" And for once, a media question hit where it needed to. "That's the real work now," I said, not winning a case. Back home, I sat my girls down in the sunroom, all 3 in their chairs, Mrs. Winters and Dr. Morgan nearby. "It's over," I told them. "Vanessa isn't coming back. She has no power here anymore." The judge saw the truth. Emma searched my face. "Did the judge believe you or her?" "She believed the evidence," I said, "and the evidence showed who she really was." Sophie let out a breath she'd been holding for days. "So she can't just show up and say she's our mom again?" "No," I said, "she's done." Lily, who had slowly started speaking again in therapy, whispered, "We're safe." "Yes," I said, "you're safe." The months that followed were not some magical healing montage. They were messy hard, filled with small steps forward and some steps back. We took down every photo that had Vanessa in it. The girls helped pick new colors and furniture for their rooms. Mrs. Winters moved into the guest house full-time and officially became Grandma Eleanor. Marcus set up an office in a wing of the house so he'd be around more, always ready with a dumb joke or a new book. We built a bubble of stability around the girls as best we could. Emma stopped waking up 3 times a night to check if her sisters were breathing. Lily's drawings slowly filled with color, the protective figure growing larger and the darkness pushed further away. Sophie went from asking, "Why are people so weird about wheelchairs?" to saying, "We should teach them." And with Dr. Morgan's blessing, she started making little educational videos for kids about what life in a wheelchair is really like. About a year later, we did something big. We started the Williams Family Foundation, focused on supporting children with disabilities and preventing abandonment. We funded accessible renovations for families who couldn't afford them, created training for adoptive parents of kids with special needs, and partnered with organizations that specialize in trauma-informed care. The girls wanted to be part of it in their own way and at their own pace. Emma helped me design an adaptive navigation app we planned to showcase at our first big gala. Sophie insisted on speaking because of course she did. Lily wanted to help pick which families we supported, carefully reading their stories and asking thoughtful questions in her quiet voice. The night of the gala, watching my 3 daughters roll into a ballroom full of donors in matching blue dresses, hair done up with little silver clips, was one of those moments where you feel the weight of everything that came before and everything that might come after. I gave a speech about accessibility, about how many kids end up in institutions, not because they're broken, but because their families don't have support. Marcus talked about the homes we'd already renovated and the parents we'd already trained. Then Sophie rolled herself up to the microphone and looked out at hundreds of strangers. "My name is Sophie Williams," she said. "I'm 9 years old. My sisters Emma and Lily and I are in wheelchairs because of a car accident. Some people think that means we're broken. A year ago, someone who was supposed to love us left us on a street because of our wheelchairs. She said we weren't her problem." You could hear people shifting in their seats, holding their breath. "But we're not broken," Sophie went on, voice strong. "We're just different. Family isn't about who looks good in pictures. It's not about who can walk beside you. It's about who stays even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." Emma and Lily rolled forward to join her. I walked onto the stage and wrapped my arms around all 3 of them as the room stood up and clapped, some people crying, some just staring like they'd never thought about any of this before. Later that night, back home after they were in pajamas and we'd removed hair clips and makeup and fancy dresses, I tucked them into bed, all 3 in the same room by choice. And Emma asked Dad, "Are you sure you'll never leave us?" I sat on the edge of her bed, looking at these 3 little faces that had been through more in a decade than most adults go through in a lifetime. "I can't promise you that life will always be easy," I said. "I can't promise that people won't disappoint us sometimes. But I can promise you this: I will not leave you. Not for money. Not for anyone. You're not my charity project, you're my home." "Forever and always?" Sophie asked. "Forever and always," I said. And this time it didn't feel like a ritual. It felt like a vow carved in stone. So that's my story. Or at least the part I can tell in one video. I set up a test for my wife that broke the illusion and exposed who she really was, but that same test also hurt the 3 people I love most in this world. I protected them from a woman who saw them as burdens, but I also put them through a day I wish I could erase from their memories. The system almost turned on me before it turned on her. The media almost decided I was the villain in my own home. So now I want to ask you, do you think I did the right thing, or did I go too far? If it were you, would you have risked that kind of test? Or would you have confronted her and hoped a judge believed your word over hers? Do you think it's ever okay to use deception, to protect your kids, or is that a line we shouldn't cross, no matter what? And beyond my mess, there's a bigger question here, one we don't like to talk about. How does our world really see disabled kids? Do we honestly see them as full human beings with value? Or do we still, somewhere deep down, treat them like projects, burdens, problems to be managed? Especially when money and image are on the line. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Disagree with me, call me out. If you think I'm wrong, or tell me if you've lived something even remotely similar. A step-parent who turned out to be different behind closed doors. A family member who treated a disabled child like less than human. A time when the system almost took your kids because someone told the wrong story first. I genuinely want to hear it. If this story made you feel something, anger, hope, discomfort, anything, share it with someone who needs to be reminded that kids in wheelchairs aren't broken, they're just different, and they deserve a family that chooses them every single day. And if you're still here at the end of this, thank you for listening to the messy, complicated truth, not just the headline version.